Welcome into GoJo and Golic. I'm Claudia Bellafato here in the Boston DraftKings studio. And on this Tuesday edition, we have plenty, including the fact that the NHL season is over. The Cats win the Cup. Florida shuts down Connor McDavid, who did get some hardware of his own, though. Sam Hauser, live, the 2024 NBA champ, joins us in hour 2. And JJ Redick has some choice words for this Lakers crew ahead of this season.
Mike Golic Sr. here alongside the aforementioned Claudia Bellafato at the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show for everybody today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings network. As Claudia mentioned, exciting day coming up here. Cannot wait to get to the bottom of Pukegate with Sam Hauser from the Boston Celtics. We dissected the video yesterday of him on the parade float going through. We think we saw him boot and rally here. We're going to make sure we do true journalism on that one. It was championship events left and right yesterday. We will get to St. Louis as the championship capital of the world against all odds today, coming off the last couple of weeks. But, Dad, it is easy at times in our job to be jaded about certain things that happen in the world of sports. We see so much. You've been covering this for decades on decades. There are a few things that I think will ground you as a sports fan, quite like watching the end of a hockey game, the end of the hockey season, and that final handshake line as the Florida Panthers take home Lord Stanley's Cup. They survive after being up 3-0 and giving up the goose, forcing a Game 7 here, and they take this home for the first time in their franchise's history. And if you don't get chills watching what went down at the end of that, I don't know if you have a pulse.
Yeah, congrats to them. What a series. Congrats to them jumping out 3-0. Edmonton bringing it back and making it 3-3, going to a Game 7, trying to become the second team in the Stanley Cup Finals to come back down 3-0, but that goes back to 1942. You wondered that a lot of talk I heard of the analysts before this game. Who's going to score first? What kind of advantage would that be? And Florida does score first, about 4 or 5 minutes into the game, something like that. But Edmonton scores a couple of minutes later. So now it's back 1-1. So now it's, okay, who's got the next goal? Maybe the next goal will be it. And it was Florida again in the second period. So you got that end of the game flurry. Which right at the end, that puck was against the board, and Florida was doing everything they could to keep that thing against the board as time was running out. It is something to watch, the desperation by the trailing team at the end of what they're trying to do and what the winning team is trying to do to hang on, and then you just see sticks fly, gloves fly, everything fly, and the celebration begin. I personally don't think there's anything like it in sports.
No, I think it's one of those pure moments that are left because, again, we overblow, I think, a lot of stuff around sportsmanship in sports, and we try and legislate that way too much, especially at the pro level. But to just see how interwoven into the fabric of the sport, the celebration for this is, the appreciation, the gut-wrenching effort from everybody involved. I mean, we talked about Sergei Bobrovsky going into this game. Had he got hurt all the way back in Game 3, goes out here and has an unbelievable performance. There were some point-blank times with Connor McDavid in front of the net right by him. You saw the strain from the defense for Florida. You certainly saw Bobrovsky carting all over there, doing cartwheels in the middle of the net, whatever it took to keep them out of there. He ultimately falls short. Connor McDavid ends up taking home the Conn Smythe, which we talked about yesterday. He was the overwhelming favorite to do. Broke Wayne Gretzky's record for assists in a single postseason.
Right.
Was just behind him and I believe Mario Lemieux for points in a single postseason as well. He's the third all time on that list coming off this. So a deserving winner. But Dad, on the other side, and we'll continue to talk about some of the great stories here. We've got sound from Paul Maurice that you're going to love. Certainly Matthew Tkachuk in the moment for him and his dad on the ice here. But on the other side of this, the Conn Smythe does get awarded to Connor McDavid. And there was a split second where I was like, are they going to make him come back out and accept this? Just the sixth player on a losing team and just the second skater. The rest had been goalies to take home the Conn Smythe in a losing effort. It's a good reminder for everyone, if you're like us and kind of parachuting in a hockey for the postseason, or maybe even for last night. I think that number is going to be huge for the game last night, because who wouldn't be drawn in by a Game 7 in the fashion that this series got to it there? But the Conn Smythe is the best player overall in the postseason, not just the Stanley Cup final, not just anything that like hyper-focused like the NBA. And so he's a deserving winner given everything that's gone on there, even though he went without a point in the last two games for the Edmonton Oilers. But if he had to go out and accept that trophy, I felt sick for him, because in that moment, I can't imagine anything worse than having to face that ice with that home crowd and team going nuts and celebrating the cup that you just missed out on.
Yeah, I mean, after the comeback you made and then it fell short, there was no way I thought he was going to come back out. Though with hockey players, man, and they're the way they are at the end with the handshake line, which I think is fantastic. You don't know. You'd wondered if he was, but he did not. As Mike said, it's the fourth most points in the postseason, but three people did it. Obviously, it's Gretzky twice and Lemieux one time. They had three higher than him. I think the highest was 47, and then down from that to McDavid's 42. So an incredible postseason for him, but I don't blame him. I mean, and I really have a problem with the losing player getting the Conn Smythe.
No, especially when it's for a whole postseason.
Not just, but a lot of times you hang it on the winning team. But, you know, we kept kind of going back and forth with who's going to get it. Bobrovsky was that favorite, but then he had a couple of just horrific games. So you weren't sure. There wasn't that one person you could single out on Florida to say, yeah, they're going to get it if they win. So I understand it.
Let me ask you and Claudia both this, because I saw one of our old colleagues, Jamel Hill, cooking this around on Twitter last night. Is that format of postseason MVP something that you guys appreciate? You know, you look at the NFL, you obviously have the Super Bowl MVP, NBA, you've got the finals MVP for that overall series. And then in the NHL, you've got the Conn Smythe. Claudia, you obviously spend the most time around hockey here, but you cover all the rest of the sports with us here. What do you think about that as the system for awarding a most valuable player in a postseason?
I think with hockey, we heard that term all the time, that the Stanley Cup is the hardest to win and it's one of the toughest postseasons to get through. So I think if any sport does award the postseason as a whole, it does make sense for it to be hockey, and it makes sense that McDavid does get credit. I understand these last two games, if you look to recency bias, why should he get it? He, had two shots in the last two games combined when it mattered most, didn't have a point. Okay, but he's also being referenced as one of the best of all time already. He's already up there with Wayne Gretzky, past Wayne Gretzky for assists in the postseason. So I understand why some people might think it's not fair and doesn't necessarily make sense, but that's because we live in a world of recency bias, because that's what we know through all our sports. So to answer your question, I think it makes sense for this sport specifically, but I do see the other side of it.
Yeah, I do see the other side of it, because, remember in the first two games we were talking about, the amount he had more shots than, but wasn't making anything. Still wasn't putting the puck in the net. Then he started to, and then in the last two games, again, not really getting it done. So you kind of focus, as Claudia said, on recency bias on this particular series, while their team made a great comeback. He in a few of the games, he wasn't doing a whole lot in it, but it does go to the whole postseason. So there is part of me, Claudia, that does wonder, should it just be the Stanley Cup Finals?
And also, just for future reference, like everybody watching, this is how the markets do change. And we mentioned this throughout the series, buying the dip, right? Connor McDavid opened plus 250 before game one, got to 16-1 when they were down 0-3, and then ended up being minus 2,500. So just keep that in mind for all of these series in the postseason. When it comes to these futures markets, they are always fluctuating. So take advantage of that dip because, yes, as much as recency bias may play into it, when it comes to hockey specifically, they look at the picture as a whole.
Yep, I was going to say it's worth noting and understanding how the award is legislated there. I do think hockey probably does this the best if we're really thinking about it, because you've got the Hart Trophy for the regular season, much like you've got the regular season MVPs in the NFL and the NBA and all these other sports. But to take this in totality, basketball doing a finals MVP, we know the discourse there is so different because of how we put rings on these star players in the NBA and how silly it's been in the last few, I'd say, half dozen years probably, where you've had so many regular season MVPs that have gone on and stumbled early in the postseason, and it makes them look bad. I'm a big fan of college lacrosse, where their regular season MVP isn't given out until after the postseason. It factors in the entirety of the season. I get with the NHL, longer season than that. Certainly you want to reward the body of work in a regular season here, but I think also, like Claudia said, taking this in totality goes a long way. And for Connor McDavid specifically, I always think, and Dad, you and I probably agree on this, it's always more interesting to hear about how guys' teammates talk about them in this regard here. And this was last night after the game, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, his teammate, both talking about the Conn Smythe and what he means to this team.
Obviously, I guess an honor with the names on that trophy, but yeah.
I don't think he cares. It speaks to how amazing of a hockey player he is. But there's no player in the world that wants to win a Stanley Cup more than him, and does everything right every single day, just to win it one day, and it's really hard.
It's one of those things we talk about, that players always remember the bad before the good.
Yep.
So he'll look at that trophy even years from now, and while there may be a fleeting moment of what he did, there's always going to bring back, but what was the end result? That they lost the cup.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, that sticks with athletes more than anything. They will name you the bad things that happened to them in their career way quicker and with more clarity than the good things that happened in their career. And this, unfortunately, this great honor trophy will remind him of this, right?
And for Connor McDavid, in the ultimate team sport, one of them with hockey players, it is so focused on that ultimate prize. And for Connor McDavid now, who has about every individual accolade you could have in 9 years as a player, adding the Conn Smythe to 3 Hart trophies, 4 Ted Lindsay awards for the most outstanding player voted on by his peers, the Art Ross trophy for the leading scorer in the regular season 5 times. He's done all of it.
Yeah.
Add this on top of the pile and got to his first Stanley Cup in his career, and it just eludes him. On the other side, let's talk about the Florida Panthers and give them their due. Somewhere Greg Cody can sleep a lot more soundly at night. Kidding. But I first thought of the guys at the Le Batard show. A guy like Roy Bellamy, huge Panthers fan down there. All of those guys and what they pour into that coverage. Super pumped for Roy and the rest of that crew there. But even more pumped for this Florida team that went to the Cup final last year, lost 4-1 to the Vegas Golden Knights, and came back there and pulled this off. And from seeing Matthew Tkachuk down on the ice with his dad and his brother getting to celebrate there, Keith Tkachuk never getting to lift the cup, and now getting to live vicariously through his son on that. Seemed like a really cool moment for that family and for that team.
God, that was cool to see, because Keith I got to know when I was in Phoenix early in the mid-'90s, and then going on into the later 90s when he was with the Coyotes and playing there with Jeremy Roenick and stuff. We go watch those games, and to see the kid win, it's a very, very cool thing for them after a nail-biting time. And they pulled the grand slam, the sweep, whatever you want, did the state of Florida now for the 4 majors. The Dolphins have 2 titles. The Marlins have 2 titles. The Heat have 3 titles. And now in their 3rd try, the Panthers have a title. Remember, in 96, they got swept by Colorado. And you mentioned last year they only won 1 game. So they've been 1-8 in 2 Stanley Cup finals before this. and now they get the 4-3 win in games over Edmonton to get their first cup. So congrats to Florida for the sweep of the majors.
Exactly. And if you want to feel good about that, even if you're not a Panthers fan, even if you have no affinity for the state of Florida and you only wish bad things on them, it's hard to hear Paul Maurice talk last night after this game and not feel something deep inside you. Here was the Panthers head coach talking after this game about the feelings and emotions of finally getting to this point.
It's just brilliant, right? I've never hugged so many sweaty men in my entire life. I'm not sure I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it tonight. So, you know what? It's not what I thought it would be. It's so much better, but it's the hugs, man. I saw Sam Bennett smile today, first time in 2 years. It's brilliant. You know, it's for my mom and dad in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. My brothers Mike and Shane in Sault Ste. Marie and Waterloo. The whole Langlois clan in LaSalle, Ontario. All of the people that suffered through 30 years of me losing, making excuses. Mom and dad especially. Hey, Dad, your name's going up with your heroes. Belleville, Richard, Howe, Lindsay, Maurice.
Wow.
Yeah, courtesy of Canada's Sportsnet in Canada there. But Dad, off the cup there to have that sense of not only the great names in the history of the sport, but also what this means, and he knows to everyone that's helped him get to this point. For a guy, Paul Maurice lost over 700 games, like the losingest coach in the NHL, stepping down 2 years ago from his position in Winnipeg to wind up here and now in 2 years, be at the highest of highs here is just such an overwhelming sports cliche of a story that you almost can't believe it's real.
He had coached the most regular season games without winning a cup, 1,848. So he had the most there without a cup. Now he has a cup. And oh, by the way, in game sevens, he's 5-0. So he knows how to get it done in game sevens. ESPN did a great compilation of Paul Maurice sound bites as well throughout these postseason. It was really, really good. He is an entertaining dude without question. But what he said is the thing that you got close to experiencing. I never got close to experiencing. And it's a feeling that in all honesty, most players will not. And that's be there at the end of the season and win that championship. And what did he say there? You know, I want to go, everybody hugs everybody. The amount of time players spend together is more time than they do with their families during a season. It's amazing the time and the effort that you put in. And all I've been able to do is talk to players that have been in that position. And they all say to a man, the first thing they do is look for a teammate, look for a coach, look for somebody to hug. Like I said, you got close to that in the title game on what that could have been and that feeling of just watching when that game ended, just everybody finding somebody to hug to you got the payoff and you realize it's the team sport and it's the player next to you, the player, down the bench from you, whoever. You all were in this together for all this time and it paid off.
Yeah, and I think in the lead up to being the last game played, and that was the most unique part of the experience for us when we played in the title, was you realize you're the only show in town.
Right. Yeah.
And the amount of people that you hear from the journey along the way grounds you so much and reminds you. That's why you hear Paul Maurice talking about the community, his family, all these different people that go into getting every one of these guys here. And the road to hockey, I mean, I went to school with so many great buddies of mine that played and coming up in the junior system and the way they got to go through this and the guys that play in the AHL and all the road here is so different and arduous as it is for every sport. And so in this lead up to this, you've got time where everybody who's in your life, who's ever pitched in, who's ever put their hand in the dirt for you, probably reached out to you at some point. And it is that overwhelming feeling that I can remember of it's your opportunity to give back to all of them. In my case, it was the chance and opportunity to give back to a place in Notre Dame, to our family, and to so many people that had poured in to me in getting to that moment. And so for these guys, I'm sure it was, hey, we know certainly this franchise's history, but also they know their personal history. They know the guy next to them and what they've been through and sacrifice. That's why you heard the heartbreak on the other side with Leon Draisaitl talking about Connor McDavid, because he sees every day what the guy puts into it and he sees the pressure that gets put on his teammate. And so on the other side, the Panthers, they get every bit of that elation after making it incredibly hard, right? They were staring down the barrel. We were talking about this. The mental fortitude it took for that Florida team to recover after giving up 3 straight, after being up 3-0. You mentioned it. Lord Stanley's Cup's in the house 4 straight nights, and you got a chance to close out. And you wait until the absolute most pressure-packed one to do it is remarkable.
Yeah, it really was. And again, low-scoring game. When Florida got out to that first goal, what was Versailles, right, with the deflection?
Yeah.
In front of the net to get the goal, but then Janmark coming back and scoring for Edmonton. And by the way, a great pass by Cody Ceci. That was a phenomenal pass up the ice. But then Reinhart getting the goal in the second period, and that was it. I mean, when you're battling that whole last period to try and tie that thing up, man, it's just a frenzied end. It's the only better end would be if it went to overtime, and now it's you're waiting for that one goal to decide it. But I love the adulation. I'm not going to lie. When I sat there and watched you guys in the title game, I envisioned you and Jake, your brother, hugging each other on the field after winning a title, and how cool that would be. And unfortunately, you guys.
And instead, we're gigantic losers, just like the Oilers. Welcome to the Loser Confetti Club, my brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
It's never gets easier, a single day in your life. But for the Panthers, enjoy this, revel in it. Matthew Tkachuk joins the picture with his middle school and high school classmate Jason Tatum as champions in 2024. Coming up next, JJ Redick said cuss words at his press conference. We'll talk about it next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. The Lakers announced JJ Redick as their new head coach yesterday, the 29th in franchise history, the 25th of the LA era. Redick was asked about the misconceptions of him being the head coach ahead of the season, and this is what he had to say.
It's been a really interesting 6 weeks or so, just in terms of, being part of the engagement farming industry. It's been really interesting. However, I don't really have a great answer for your question because I really don't give a like, honestly. I want to coach the Lakers. I want to coach the team. I don't want to dispel anything. I don't. I want to become a great coach in the NBA, and I want to win championships, and I want my players to maximize their careers.
Well, guys, he just came from calling the NBA Finals, which he did great at, which was live TV. This also a live presser. So this, he knew that people were going to hear this. This was pointed, was it not, Senior?
Oh, no, I hope he doesn't get in trouble for it. Are people going to yell at him because he said a naughty word?
That's what happens when the mouse isn't signing your checks anymore. You know you can use the 4-letter words now.
Yeah, his 4-letter word used to be ESPN.
Yes, exactly.
Now it's a little different. Who gives a blank what he said? I don't care. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we'll get into another part of that later with somebody else.
By the way, shout out to the homie Claire DeLune over at The Guardian who asked that question and got the answer out of it there. Great
But
run.
there's fair question. And he even said, leading up to that, when the question was asked, he even said, that's a good question. I understand the question. But the question's a fair question to ask. He's never been a head coach. He went from broadcasting to becoming a head coach. So the question was going to come, and he's heard about it. He's heard all the talk about it. He's, everybody, people putting up other people that were up for the job and their resumes, all their coaching years, and JJ Redick, none. And how does he get the job? Well, as I said, we've seen this happen before, and we'll see what the outcome is. But he's already got some coach speak going on.
No one was more prepared to win the press conference than the former incredibly accomplished podcaster and analyst. Like, nobody was more ready to send that message. And to be clear, that was a message. We always talk about this, Dad. Coaches use the opportunity at the pulpit up there to send a message to somebody, whether that's the players, whether that's the fan base, and whoever. And I think for JJ Redick, this was for everyone. This is a grounding principle. And this is something I've talked about as someone who came into this business as a Nepo baby and who understood my path looked different in a way that was going to draw ire from a lot of people. The one thing I always said, you got to ground yourself is, do I know why I am here? Do I know what I want to do? And if this is something I really want to pursue and I'm passionate about doing the work for, then I can sleep well with the rest of whatever's going to come. And JJ Redick's going to deal with that on an intergalactic stage with the Los Angeles Lakers. And so he is reminding everybody of the central thesis, which is, I want to coach. This is something that had been into his head for a while. I think he said Rick Carlisle brought it up a few years ago. And ever since then, it had kind of been something that was always in the back of his mind that he wanted to do. And so he knows why he's here. And as long as that's front and center, everything else is going to fade into the background because JJ knows it's just noise. It's stuff that at times we are structuring and trying to figure out how to put in such a way on TV that sounds interesting so people will keep listening to all of us barf into microphones.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, it comes down to wins and losses because that's what happens now. But it has always come up when all of a sudden it was this Dan Hurley thing, right? And this was going to be this massive offer, which it wasn't. And we're just wondering who used who or what was the situation here. And he even said, JJ Redick, about it, my ego wasn't hurt, that they went after Dan Hurley, made him an offer like that. And who knows if it was or not. But they also taught there was other candidates they interviewed. And I love how the Lakers because we know it always happens. Sometimes a team doesn't get A or they don't get B. Sometimes they get the C choice. What choice are you? And I love the way that Rob Pelinka kind of measured this. He said that JJ Redick was always in the team's plan A pool of candidates.
Oh, the pool.
The pool. Now it was a pool of candidates. What a way to get around it. What a way to get around that.
Let me tell you what, as someone who was on a lot of people's lists back in the day, because when you get cut, this is when the little lesson for everyone is you watch it on Hard Knocks. When you get cut, what they do is they tell you, hey, listen, you had a great camp. We appreciate your time out here. You're on our list. Right. So if somebody goes down, stay ready and we're going to call you. As someone who didn't get a lot of those calls back, usually those lists, those little pools don't work out all that well. And so everyone can use it for what they want to do. They want to make you feel good there. Just like here, they want JJ Redick to feel like he was their first choice because, Dad, we see this every time a coach gets hired. We got our guy. We got our guy.
Well, you hear that in the draft every year. I mean, but the Plan A pool, I'd like to know how many candidates were in the Plan A pool. How many? I mean, would they have said that about anybody?
Is it a kiddie pool?
Yeah.
Is it a above ground pool?
What kind of pool is it?
Are you thrown into the deep end? Because you could argue JJ Redick getting thrown into the deep end a little bit here.
Because they interviewed another, 3, 4 guys. So how many were in the A pool? I think no matter who they hired, that person was going to be in the A pool.
And you know what? Honestly, for JJ Redick, he's got the right perspective on this. Now, he used the F word to make some noise, and it worked.
Yeah.
Smart move, by the way. Cussing, real cool. I only trust people that cuss, by the way. When you don't cuss, it kind of freaks me out. Except for Dan Orlovsky, because I know he's really about it. Dan Orlovsky doesn't cuss.
No.
And I believe that in his bones, and I respect that about Dan.
Listen, I played with one of the greatest of all time.
That is
never
true.
Cussed, and Reggie White. And Reggie White didn't care if you cussed. Just don't cuss at him.
Yeah,
And there were a few guys on the field that actually did that.
Could you imagine being dumb enough to cuss at Reggie
yeah,
White?
There were a few people who paid the price dearly for doing that.
God, that's the wisest words echo in my mind of all time. Advice I got from Zach Street, the longtime right tackle of the New Orleans Saints, who said, you don't get bonus points for blocking a dude when he's pissed off.
Yeah, you don't.
And as someone that was not good enough to block them when they weren't pissed off anyway, I didn't need to add fuel to the fire there. But for JJ Redick, and he mentioned it, he's been the subject of a lot of discourse, and he's going to continue to be. He knows that's what comes with the gig here. He said, by the way, pour one out for our fallen podcast homie. Said he's out of the podcast game right now. No more content from JJ Redick, the old man in the 3 franchise, who had obviously been partners here at DraftKings. We'd had JJ on the show a couple of times here, and it was always great to, and like really good at that part of the job. Like JJ's interviews with current players, current coaches, his work as a broadcaster at ESPN had all been great. So it is a loss for the basketball content community.
It is. It was a heck of a podcast in a world of hundreds of thousands of podcasts to find those that really stick out. That one certainly did. Was interesting to note that we kept thinking and talking about with the new search. LeBron has his choice coming up on whether to take his player option. I think it's June 30th, or become a free agent, or what's going to happen there. All the talk on how much would he be involved in this, especially when JJ's name came up because they were doing the podcast. And again, the word was that James was supportive of the Lakers search, but chose not to be heavily involved. While the Lakers center, Anthony Davis, did choose to be very involved, supposedly, in this.
JJ, the one thing I'll say is JJ and them trying to get up there and act like him and LeBron never talked about this doing the podcast.
That I'm not buying one bit.
I love JJ, genuinely rooting for this to go well. I think it would be so cool. The Lakers talked about they wanted to think outside of the box with this. Rob Pelinka mentioned they wanted to do something and thought about being unique in that. But to think that LeBron James and JJ Redick never hinted at this at all, and that Anthony Davis was actually the one in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Come on, dog. I'm not that dumb.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one for me to buy in. But here he is. Let's see what they can do. We sit in there and talked about, and we'll talk about another team that hired their coach, because you sit there and look at it, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. But when you start to dive in and break it down, it's like, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. It's got a little work to do.
It is an interesting challenge and an interesting juncture. Like you said, while he's been, Claudia, looking forward to this, he's getting caught up to speed on the draft, their free agency moves, and everything that I'm sure he's had an eye on, but now has to dive all the way into.
With total inexperience. What was he, a middle school volunteer coach before this? Of course he played the game, and I mentioned his knowledge of the game. I'm curious, though, we don't have the odds out yet at the DraftKings Sportsbook. We will have the total number of wins for this upcoming season. Last year was 47.5. They got 47. If you guys had to put a number on it, of course we don't know the situation with LeBron, the rest of the makeup of this team, but with JJ Redick being in this position and just what he's going to do with it, give me a quick number, both of you. I'm curious.
You know what? No, we'll put a pin in that on the other side, because coming up next, I don't think JJ Redick is even the most important factor in what that number looks like. So we will take a look at what we think of this Lakers upcoming season, and one other team that made their announcement and their choice yesterday. Your hometown Cleveland Cavaliers now also have a coach. How does the last seat in musical chairs work out for the Detroit Pistons? Next. GoJo Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Claudia Bellafato here. We'll get to the Lakers win total in just a second because Claudia asked us a question about last year versus this year with JJ Redick is one of the important factors with the Los Angeles Lakers. But we talked about JJ cussing at the press conference, and there's already the effects being felt here right on the home front. My brother, his wife Jenny, our nephew Jackson are just getting ready to head back out of town. And Jackson comes down here, drops an F-bomb right in front of me and says he learned it from JJ Redick. So, JJ, I hope you're happy right now. Kids were listening yesterday. You're a public figure with a lot on your plate, but this is the kind of impact you're having. I hope you're happy right now.
I will say, and he's just turning 2.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I believe tomorrow he turns 2. What I will say was impressive. He used it in perfect context.
That is true, yeah, which is all you can ask for out of a young person.
I got no problem with that. While many out there may have a problem with it, I got no problem with it. When you use it in context and not just throwing out the word, I'm okay with it.
That is true. Reach one, teach one. So shout out JJ Redick on that, helping out. Lord knows I've been trying to teach him to cuss this last week.
Yes, well, that's an uncle's job.
That's one of my only jobs because I don't change diapers. I don't do any of the other stuff. I am out on that until the child's my own.
You will teach him to swear and do illegal things.
Yeah, exactly. And
because you're the only one of my kids who went to jail. So
yeah, I just say shout out, man.
Yeah.
My folks, I'm back here visiting St. Joe County, going to see my people on the inside.
You've changed.
I have changed. Listen, that's part of the Reformation there. It's people can change and can get better here. So my job is to teach Jackson now the things that will tick his parents off. I feel like everyone in the fun uncle role or the fun aunt role, you're in charge usually of like gifts. You want to show up with gifts so that the kids have a positive remembrance of you when you leave. And the calculus I've been doing ever since even my friends started having kids, most of them started having long before my brother and sister had kids, was do you get the gifts that the kids are going to love that are going to drive the parents insane?
Right.
Because we learned yesterday, Jackson really into the guitar. We were showing him rock music videos, playing him Darius Rucker songs, and he's sitting there strumming the little ukulele you guys had. And I'm thinking about getting him a microphone and a guitar that I know are going to drive Jake and Jenny insane because he's going to be playing it nonstop. But Jackson will love it and thereby love me even more. And that's really all I care about. His happiness far exceeds Jake and Jenny's in my hierarchy.
Without a doubt. As a grandparent, I would think the same thing.
Right.
Because you know what? We're not living with him. Deal with it. You go ahead and buy him the guitar, and in case he doesn't like that enough, I'll buy him a drum set.
Should I really drop a nuke in there and buy him a recorder? I feel like there's no bigger bane of a parent's existence than when the recorder makes hot cross buns on repeat for the next 3 years of your life.
When you bring the recorder home from school, right?
I have to imagine that's one of the darkest days in a parent's life. It's when a kid wants to play T-ball because that sounds like hell as a parent, and then the recorder.
T-ball, without a doubt. Listen, it's fun. There are still parents out there that take it too seriously. The best thing about T-ball with any parent that went through it, and I was coaching you guys in T-ball, the first thing you try and teach a kid, when the ball is hit, only let the person that the ball is going to get it. Everybody else stay in your position. And inevitably, every single hit, every kid runs to the ball. Every single one of them. It is something you can't stop. It is something as a coach, don't get frustrated because it never works. Nobody ever listens the first few times. They'll eventually get it, but just let them have at it.
The tough part with T-ball is you can't coach pitch, brush them back off the plate a little bit, remind them, hey, they're out here. You need to listen to me. T-ball, you're kind of at their mercy.
We've really got off on an aside here because T-ball is tough there. And then the first time you go to coach pitch and then the first time you go to player pitch.
Yeah.
The games are 3 hours. There's 25 walks. The strike zone the umpire has to have is a foot over your head to almost in the dirt is a strike. So you just tell your kids to go up there and swing.
Robot umps for Little League Baseball. Upon this rock, I'll build my church. Sorry, I got foot in the parking lot.
I know, you don't even care about
It's my last show for like a week and a half. I'm flying to Japan tomorrow. I can't wait. I'm excited to tell you guys all about the trip on the back end. I'm not going to tell you about the front end because I don't need anybody showing up in any places I'm at right now. I'm off the clock.
Have you learned any of the language? Anything?
I've learned enough. Like, I couldn't replicate it for you now on air. I know enough of the phrases to basically get through pleasantries that will make me not seem like a bleep hole over there because I want to go and be respectful of the culture over there. It seems like an incredibly nice group of people over there that are welcoming. Like anywhere else, if you go there and just try and meet them halfway a little bit, I've got enough to. And this is always the key for me when I've traveled to foreign countries before is you need to know enough to get around in public transit. you need to know enough to order yourself food, and you need to know enough to get in wherever you are going to lay your head at night. If you can speak through those situations, everything else is gravy. You can kind of like nod your way and offer a little bit of help. There's so many Google Translate features. So many places have English signage up there anyway. The rest of that is just being respectful enough in those places to get fed, to get travel, and to get sleep.
The two things that surprised me the most about this trip, and one would really only affect me. You guys rarely carry cash, and I always try and tell you guys, carry cash for tipping people, right?
Yeah.
Just have cash to tip, because I always tip. God knows our buddy Mike Periano is the king tipper of all time.
You just have to exist with a pulse around him, and he'll tip you.
I
got tipped by Mike.
You give the wrong information, and he still tips you. He would struggle in Japan because you don't tip.
Yeah,
you don't. It's disrespectful?
Yes, it is.
You cannot tip,
which is great because tipping culture has gotten out of control.
Oh, it has gotten out of control. But you don't tip, and the other thing is more to do with you because of all the tattoos. Is you have to cover all those up.
It sounds like culture's changing a little bit on that, but yeah, there are certain places where I'm going to have to be mindful of that. So it's going to be an interesting trip, and that's why my energy's a little chaotic today.
Care a thing about the show today, Claudia. It's basically you and I.
I'll answer Claudia's question. She asked about the Lakers win total. It was 47 last year. They hit it on the button. You said we don't have the odds out yet. If I was betting the over on that, Dad, to me, right now, the unsexy answer would be incomplete. If I'm inclined to really go one way or the other, I would probably say under just because the Western Conference is such a juggernaut. But we know JJ Redick is not the biggest factor in this. LeBron James Jr. is not going to be the biggest factor in this, or really any at all. It's that they've got room with the draft picks they have to add another star player. That was the plan we talked about at the end of the regular season going into the postseason, is they have got the tools and the resources to go out there and add another marquee player to that bunch there. And how they are going to go about that, to me, is going to go far longer than any coaching decision that JJ Redick is going to make this season.
Yeah, same thing, Claudia. If you make us pick right now, I would take the under as well. And to me, the next interesting thing is who is he going to hire as his assistant? Is his top assistant going to be someone who's had head coaching experience that he could lean on? A lot of people have thrown out Stan Van Gundy, a guy who was his coach in the NBA. But we'll see who he brings in. To me, those are always the important things, because I know, at least in our sport, you rarely deal with your head coach.
Sure.
You're always dealing with your coordinator or your position coach, certainly different in every sport, but assistant coaches obviously are huge in the NBA. So that, to me, is the next piece that I'm really looking forward to
Speaking of assistant coaches, and we'll have Emmett Golden from ESPN Cleveland on with us a little later to talk more about this, but the Cleveland Cavaliers announced their head coaching hire as well. They hired Golden State Warriors assistant and former Brooklyn Nets head coach Kenny Atkinson to come be the franchise's next head coach there. So they had been long linked to the assistant coach from the
Pelicans,
the New Orleans Pelicans.
Borrego,
James Borrego.
He's going to Detroit.
Now is going to go to, and he's got ties to ownership from their time in
Trajan Langdon, who's the new president of Detroit now. He's got ties with him. So look for Borrego to end up in Detroit, and that will fill out the slots.
That's the foot in the parking lot coming out there for me. Thank you for filling in the smart.
I'm just here trying to,
James Borrego sounds great. Kenny Atkinson sounds like it'll go really well there. Excited for him. We'll see how it affects Donovan Mitchell later on. I mean, you got that. He was kind of pushing the buttons. I saw Brian Windhorst was on ESPN Cleveland the other day and said, let's put it this way. And I love Windy. When Windy starts talking about like this, I just imagine him back with now why is that finger pistols back out? When he said, I'll put it to you like this. Donovan Mitchell and Kenny Atkinson, when they have their first meeting officially, it won't be the first time that they've talked.
No.
Basically, which we've kind of got the opinion of when JB Bickerstaff got fired, is this was a largely, it seems, Donovan Mitchell-driven process of decision-making for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so now how they go about trying to get him signed there long-term to ensure that their star player sticks around seems like the next and most important priority, and probably was more important than the head coaching decision itself.
So let me ask you this. I'll make it easy. I'll ask you the questions. You can just answer and be on your way. The Cavaliers had 48 wins last year, were fourth in the country. We talk about the depth of the West. The Lakers had one less win, 47, and they were seventh. They were in the play-in. Who has more wins next year? Cavaliers, they had 48. Lakers at 47.
I mean, the Cavaliers should have more wins next year. You combine all that experience that they got this year with a core that's younger and plays in the weaker side of basketball. And yeah, I think they're going to be in good shape going into next year. Coming up next, speaking of summer radio, let's crown a king or queen next for this summer. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Michael Jr., Michael Sr., Claudia Bellafato. Got a fun hour coming up in hour number 2. Sam Hauser from the Boston Celtics going to join us here to recap the parade festivities and their great championship run. Emmett Golden, we mentioned from ESPN Cleveland, going to stop by and help us digest the new hire of their head coach and how it affects the franchise going forward here. But, Dad, it is summertime.
Yes,
and
it is.
I know one thing, being with you guys, I've been out in South Bend with you for the last week and change here for the Golic Subpar Classic. We had my niece Alex's baptism yesterday here on Notre Dame's campus. It was all great. I'm reminded, though, being with you guys in person, you and Mom watch a lot of the same TV shows that were on in the house growing up, which means it's a ton of the King of Queens, but even more, Everybody Loves Raymond and Seinfeld.
Absolutely.
You guys, I mean, you and Mom can spot the episode a mile away, like 2 minutes into it, exactly what it's going on. I hear Mom call out from the kitchen, this is one of my favorite episodes, like 3 times a day. And one of the episodes of Seinfeld, George Costanza declares it the Summer of George.
Yes, he does.
And so we thought, sitting around here, while we don't want to, certainly take that title away from George, it'd be fun to look around because now that we're done with the NBA postseason, the NHL postseason, the College World Series wrapped up, Tennessee Vols take home their first title in 30 years in that program. So exciting stuff for them. Seinfeld. Now we have to look out the rest of the summer. Who's it going to belong to here? We've had so many players that have come up as big-time stars throughout this. As we wrap up and look out towards the rest of the summer, that includes certainly the WNBA.
Right.
We'll be getting ready for the NFL's preseason. We've got the Olympics coming up here. Is there someone, Dad, you think is certainly poised to go out and grab this summer by the horn?
To me, I'm going with someone in the Olympics because you know me, I'm an Olympic freak. I'll watch anything.
But I do think people latch on to the Olympics a lot this time. There's great
agree.
Storytelling and awesome different events.
I love the backstories of some of these athletes. So what are your choices in Olympics? You can talk about a couple of teams, the women's soccer team. You could talk about the men's basketball team as well, which is just going to smoke everybody in this. You could talk about individuals, Noah Lyle, the sprinter, fastest man, we go for 100 meters, the fastest man in the world title. Katie Ledecky for swimming. There's a few women out there, Reagan Smith, Kate Douglas, you could talk about as well, because swimming's such a huge thing. Simone Biles might be back again after, going through what she went through in the last Olympics, and now has made a comeback and is looking as better than ever. Watching her, it's just stunning to me how high she gets in the air. It just blows my mind.
Terrifying.
But she may recapture and regain all that as well. So I'm definitely looking at someone in the Olympics is going to grab the summer.
I was going to say, because the easy answer would be Caitlin Clark. Like, it's already been Caitlin Clark mania in the W, but we're going to go a month without seeing her.
Right.
We're going to go through this Olympic break where, again, she's not on the roster as of right now. She wasn't on the initial roster, and there's still time for that to potentially change. But if she's not, and she's back home working out and getting ready for the back half of the W season, we're going to go a long time without seeing her. And she's driven the discourse without necessarily being the center of the conversation, if that makes sense, right? It's her presence. It's what so many people have projected onto her. But she's still undeniably been one of the most important faces of sport during the beginning part of this summer. So it's hard to look away from her, but we do have that potential of a big gap in the action without her that could throw that off.
Yeah, that's why I really lean to the Olympics. And at the end of the day, I probably lean to one of the swimmers. Kate Douglas is poised to have a great Olympics. Katie Ledecky, who's going to go down as the greatest female swimmer of all time. Reagan Smith, world record in the 100 back. At this point in the trial. So there's a few there that I really like. But I really do think it's going to be the Olympics.
I don't know. After yesterday, Travis Kelce, this last weekend.
Well, he would have to stay on tour. He did one thing. I know. Well, listen.
There's no telling how many roles we could see him in now in this. And he's got the more. I saw he went on with Bussin' with the Boys the other day, or yesterday, and that'll be coming out today. And there's all this great sound to him talking about Taylor that the Swifties are going to lap up. Like, he is going to be at the top of the conversation all summer as he's got this break before training camp starts.
For everybody to know, this is break time for all the players. They finish up like that third week of June or second week of June with that last mini camp, and then it's break until third week or so in July when camp goes. It's not like they're not working out. They're still working out and preparing. I'm sure he's still doing that.
But he was on Bussin' with the Boys because he was down at tight end too. He was putting in the work with all those guys there.
And we have no doubt he's going to put in the work, but I just don't know how much he's going to do what we saw him do. He may be out there on tour, but I don't know how many times he's going to be on stage. So I can't really go with him. I know all these people in the Olympics are going to compete and be grabbing headlines. So that's why right now I am safer when going with one of them.
Tell you what, if you time lapse this in a month, I saw a lot of Swifties hypothetically looking at what other roles he could play in there. You make him the chair during the vigilante bleep part.
Well, that's what I was thinking too.
That's going to go crazy right there. I mean, people are going to lose their minds. I'm telling you, if you want to make it the summer of Travis,
isn't that what
you've got to do?
Isn't that I was telling you before the show? If that happened,
100%.
No idea what you're talking about.
What I will say, Dad, you mentioned the Olympics, and I actually think this would probably be, if I was going to buy stock in an Olympic athlete, it's already high. We talk about buying the dip all the time with Claudia. Right. We're probably past buying the dip on this player, but there's been enough of a break in the conversation around him. Man, oh man. An Anthony Edwards performance on the Olympic team.
Yeah.
Where we talk about one of those ascendant was already a guy that had an ascendant postseason in terms of the way he was talked about and viewed. He's 22 years old, hyper competitive. You look at the rest of the Team USA basketball roster, it's a pretty old group, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, all these guys on here that are more towards the back half of their career. Jason Tatum's coming off of the NBA title run here, him and Drew Holiday, so they're probably going to be a little worn out. Anthony Edwards has the perfect amount of youth and the right attitude to want to come and grab this stage by the neck and take control.
The only thing I'll say is, are they going to be challenged at all? I mean, to me, it'd be a little different if they were in some close games and fighting for the gold.
I think the only standard for them is, do you win gold or not? As long as you're Team USA basketball, if you win gold and you do it with enough incredible highlights to draw on our attention, which Anthony Edwards is want to do given his skill set, he seems like a guy who could absolutely make a run at being one of the biggest names at the Olympic Games with this team.
I agree. The only problem is that they're blowing out teams, people aren't going to keep watching. Whereas I'm going to go back into the pool again.
I don't know how much they're going to blow out everybody. We've talked about it. World basket. I mean,
it's gotten better. But look at this roster. This roster's unbelievable. I know.
We've talked about the best players in the NBA right now are largely players that have come from overseas.
I get it, but they're not all from the same country. So you're getting one, maybe two. We got a friggin' roster full. So we're gonna, in my opinion,
we got a roster that sounds
everybody out.
We got a roster that sounds great 6 years ago. Well, there's a lot of great players on here, but Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Steph Curry, all those guys.
They can split time. To me, listen, I'm gonna love them winning gold.
They're gonna win it.
They are gonna win it.
I think we're past the era of it just being them easily skating by everybody all the time.
I think it's going to be easier than you think. I'm looking in the pool, and I'm looking with the rivalry the U.S. has with Australia. That, to me, there are going to be some monster races. The swimmers kind of are jumping into the whole rivalry as well. There's some words that are going back and forth.
I mean, there's some cuss words that are going on in the pool right now, too. That's got everybody fired up.
So Regan Smith swam at the Olympic trials, set the world record in the 100 back, and she finished it. They had the camera right on her face, and she said, blank yeah, and that's the F word she used. And, I mean, you could read lips. You knew exactly what she said.
Love it.
There are a group of coaches. I swear I thought this was being made up. But there's supposedly a group of coaches out there who think she should be disqualified because of the language that she used. You know, this is like for younger age group type things.
Yeah, apparently this is a real thing.
This would be a thing about, proper conduct and such. But she says that after setting a world record. You know what? I want to tell all you coaches out there who think that, F off. How about that? I mean, seriously, that is a joke. Hey, if you're offended by that word, get the frick over yourselves. I mean, seriously, for the work that they put in, that she puts in, sets a world record, and she shows off some emotion, oh my God, and uses a bad word, the world is going to fall apart. Shut the hell up. I'm like, let her enjoy the world record. Let her hopefully go on and win gold and add to that world record. People are a joke. It's just a friggin' word. Get over yourselves.
You just say frick?
Frickin'.
I haven't heard since middle school.
I don't want these guys have to be ready to beat me out.
Incredible.
Stuff,
Let her cuss. We let JJ cuss. Let her cuss.
Absolutely.
Coming up next, we'll deal with a full range of emotions heading into the 2024 NFL season here on GoJo and Golic. All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of GoJo and Golic here. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. in South Bend. Claudia Bellafato in Boston.
Can I quickly, a couple of people already tweeting about the swearing swimmer and Reagan Smith. She did not get disqualified.
No, she didn't.
There's some were saying, oh my God, I can't. No, there were a bunch of coaches, not officials at the meet, coaches who were thinking that she should get DQ'd for bad language. She did not, should not have, and will not get disqualified.
If you weren't with us in the last segment, Reagan Smith is a swimmer who qualified for the Olympics. She was seen on camera saying the F word after
a
the fact.
world record.
There was a report that there were a group of coaches in swimming that were trying to petition to get her disqualified, something that happens at lower levels of swimming. You feel better now? You good?
I do. Well, I just, I felt I gave out. I felt I gave out if people misunderstood and thought she got disqualified. You're leaving in an hour and going to Japan. You don't care what's going on.
And I'm the one who is composed right now, trying to lay out this great idea that our producers had about the hockey ratings that we had from this postseason.
They were really good.
That was your analysis?
Yeah, really good. Can't wait to see what the number is for last night. Think it breaks the record? Record's 8.7 mil. Going back to 2019 in a Game 7 between, what was it, the Blues and the Bruins? That Game 7, 8.7. That's a big number.
I have to imagine. I mean,
I hope
the buzz going around this because once you hit the headlines that we got to with the NHL and with the Stanley Cup Final, where it was, and every easy generalist national talk show can line up with, is this the worst? I mean, we did it yesterday. Is this the worst collapse in sports history? You've invited a whole new group of people into your dojo here, a bunch of very casual eyes. I saw a lot of my friends from football Twitter that migrate over in the postseason because with hockey and baseball, you have to watch pretty diligently night in and night out to get a real sense for these teams, especially hockey. It's a game that really rewards the eye test. There's a lot of people, Shea and the folks over at Too Many Men that we've talked to you before, Sarah Sivan, you do a great job crunching the numbers of hockey, but I do think it's a sport that uniquely rewards the eye test in terms of what you're looking for. Claudia, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's one you've got to kind of spend that time and intimacy with. And for a lot of people, that's just more time if they don't have a rooting interest than they're willing to do. But playoff hockey, when you can parachute in and get caught up on everything, and then you get handed, hey, this team was up 3 games, and then they lost the next 3. And now they might biff this in an intergalactically bad way. Oh, we'll all line up for that because especially if it's not your team. And we've talked about this plenty when earlier in the playoffs, Claudia's Boston Bruins were still involved in things. When it's not your team and it's a Game 7, it's unlike any other drug on the planet. When it's your team in a high-pressure game, I would rather crawl into a hole and die. Having to watch, you know how relieved I was during this last season when I would have to, Notre Dame games that were on at the same time as games I was calling so I wouldn't have to watch live? Watch it. It is hell.
I know, but you're not.
You don't understand the fan life like me.
I don't.
You don't.
I don't.
It is hell on earth.
It was more watching you kids play than the team play because the team, I just win, lose, I feel bad if they lose and you move on.
And listen, Dad, I am so envious of your worldview in so many things. You have a beautifully simple view of life and you've never latched on. Like you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Like we moved around so much when I was a kid. I never really had a true fandom for a sports team that wasn't Notre Dame. You grew up in Cleveland and you don't live and die with these teams in that said same way. Like Notre Dame football every weekend has a chance to ruin my life. Like, not just ruin the weekend, ruin my life for that weekend based on. I thought it would change after I played.
I was going to say, it hasn't changed at all.
It hasn't changed at all. And so when I watch those pressure-packed games, I know what Oilers fans and Panthers fans were going through last night. Because having to watch a team that you have given the ability, I've handed them my heart on a silver platter and said, here's a hammer. If you want to beat it to death, it's yours to do so with. Claudia, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
I do. Yes, I feel that. And I heard someone make the argument, would you rather, as an Edmonton fan, just be swept, or lose in that Game 5 rather than coming back, being down 0-3, ripping off those great 3 wins, and then losing by 1 in Game 7? And that's legitimate, but that goes back to GoJo's point of it's just excruciating to watch, knowing that you could lose and then lose.
What would you take in that situation, Claudia? Because we have this argument all the time. I know how Dad feels, and I'll let him rant in a second. But would you rather your team either be blown out, be swept like that, never really feel like you were in it, or have that kind of comeback like Edmonton did?
100% the comeback, especially with a player like Connor McDavid, who deserves to have that conversation around him and not the other way. So, yeah, I'm curious what side of – I'm assuming we're all on the same side, right?
Oh, no, we're very much on the same side.
Oh, I mean, dude, I for those that say I'd rather get blown out than lose close, I can't stand that. Can't stand it. I mean, when you guys got blown out by Alabama, give me a close game. Let me say, even if you lost, guys, you were right there. I mean, you were right there with who's crowned the champion. You were right there with them. I will take that any day of the week to be competitive in that game. And for those that say I'd rather not go to a championship game than go and lose, I got some swear words for you. Since we're talking a lot about that, because that's a joke. You have no shot of winning a title unless you're in the title game, whether you'll get blown out or not. Your chance, at least when you're in the title game, is to win one. So it does not compute with me for anybody to say, A, I'd rather get blown out than lose close, or B, I'd rather not be there if I'm going to go there and lose.
At GoJo Golic on Twitter, I am genuinely curious. Would you rather have your team lose close or get blown out in a championship environment here? I have a feeling this one, most sane people would say have it be close. I do think more people side on that. I would rather not get to the championship and go out on a good note for the season than losing the title. Some people seem to be bought into that. I can't imagine anyone would buy into that because, again, as someone who got their ass whooped intergalactically on that stage, how dare any of you entertain that thought that would be fun? It wasn't fun then. It ain't fun now 12 years later. You can be assured of that. So go out there and lose in a way where people at least respect you and not say all the wild stuff they've said to me for the last decade plus. That inspires a lot of emotions. Hockey brought a lot of eyeballs and emotions to the screens this year. You mentioned we're probably going to break a record for that Game 7 that we saw last night. There's already in U.S. ratings a 36% boost up for the Stanley Cup Final, an average of 3.6 million viewers through the first 6 games. So awesome to see people tuning in for that record level attendance during the regular season. Average venues were at 97% capacity. People were watching the hell out of some hockey. You know what else people were watching?
Yeah,
Claudia. Little sequel called Inside Out 2 that is taking the summer by storm. How about that?
Yeah, a movie that we've all seen, right?
I haven't seen it either yet, Claudia. Have you seen Inside Out 1?
No.
Oh my God!
Come on,
man!
Look who you're talking to.
What did you? Okay, what am I supposed to do? Go to the movies by myself and watch it?
Yes, it's awesome. I love going movies by myself.
Always went to movies by myself.
Going to kids' movies by yourself as an adult, little bit of a dangerous game here. As someone who has, done that for certain ones, because some of these kids' movies have adult themes and they're kind of made for the parents in mind too. I can understand that, but you only do that once before you realize you're going to get a lot of looks that you don't want.
Yeah, you don't want that. But Inside Out, Inside Out 1 was a while ago.
2015.
So that's a while ago to me. Now, Inside Out 2 passed Dune 2 globally for best grossing right now. What, 724 million? So. I remember really enjoying Inside Out 1. I thought it was great.
Shout out to the homie Bing Bong, man. I will never forget what that did to me in that movie theater. I think we saw that all as a family. And
yeah, I think you're right.
That's one of those where you get to certain parts of the movie, I can't make eye contact with anyone. It was that I remember crying in Avengers Endgame. I saw in Nashville during the NFL draft weekend. I had like 4 free hours that entire weekend, and our whole digital crew from ESPN went to see that movie. And when it gets to the part, and everyone knows the part, and I'm not going to say it on here in case you haven't seen the part, but you know the part, and I just looked straight forward, and all I heard was in my row.
Oh, yeah.
Just a bunch of people with snot bubbles and tears running down their face. So Inside Out was that kind of movie for everyone. And now this one's advanced the ball. It's the same little girl from that movie, but she's growing up and she's feeling more complex array of emotions instead of just anger and joy and sadness and all the ones from the first movie.
I will say really quickly before we go here, we talk about making eye contact with someone in a movie. I think the worst one where you guys couldn't make eye contact was with your grandmother when we went and saw Wolf of Wall Street.
That's a different way.
Wow.
That's a different way.
Wow. Have you seen that one, Claudia?
Yeah, and that I can relate to. Yeah, that's
we
that's
had
like when
no
I watched
idea.
the Titanic for the first time with my parents. I'm like, look at
Wolf
that!
of Wall Street.
Look at that
What
tree.
goes on there?
The Titanic's just some boobies.
Yeah,
though.
that's just
Okay, but as a
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
I
Wolf
mean,
of Wall Street.
Wolf
Why
of
did
Wall
you
Street,
watch that
man.
with your grandma? What were you
no
doing?
idea. We had no idea.
It was on Christmas too.
Yeah, we had no clue it was like that. I mean, we had seen the trailers for it. They're not showing some of the stuff in that movie in the trailers.
Well, you
so we're
can't.
sitting there and that's going on. I remember you guys in the row in front of us next to your Grandma Jan and going, oh my God, this has to be uncomfortable.
Poor Jan.
It was.
Yeah.
It was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I felt a little bit of anxiety in that moment here. And in Inside Out 2, the list of emotions range from joy to sadness to anger, fear, disgust, anxiety, envy, embarrassment, ennui. I guess it's one of the new ones. I guess it means boredom.
Why don't we just say boredom?
Because ennui is cool.
No. Why do we do that? Why do we do that?
'Cause
it's like in the rainbow. Why is it indigo?
Oh, God, this is...
Why is it indigo?
Miss Rachel has this rainbow song that's been playing nonstop in our house with the kids there. And my dad is absolutely beside himself that they refer to indigo and violet, which, by the way, Dad, like Roy G. Biv, the way that we're all taught the acronym for the rainbow in school involves indigo. It's in there. It's been canon for a while. So I don't know what you're doing with this.
I'm not happy with it. I never did like that.
This is
Sorry.
This is a tangent we don't need to go on
All
right now.
okay.
Instead, what we need to do is we need to look ahead at the 2024 NFL season with all these emotions in mind. Dad, we are going to lay out some of the emotions here, and you're going to tell me which NFL team, player, fan base might be feeling these emotions heading into this upcoming season here. Let's start on a good note here. Let's start with joy. Which pick an entity from the NFL that you believe is feeling joy heading into this upcoming year.
I would say the biggest joy to me would be Bears fans.
Okay.
Because of what that team has done. Again, as Justin Fields looks over from Pittsburgh and saying, where the hell was that when I was there, of what they have done, bringing in Caleb Williams, but help around him. So to see what kind of improvement we'll see this year from them.
All right. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Bears fans, that one I would almost classify more as hope, because I think they're full of a lot of hope, which is tangent to joy.
But hope isn't on the list.
I think they'll feel joy when they start winning. Honestly, when I thought of joy, I thought of the wide receivers this offseason. Since we saw everybody and their mom get paid here. Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, and Justin Jefferson obviously got the huge bag in all this. The Eagles wide receivers got paid. Pretty much everyone out here getting the bag right now. So instead of one player we'll talk about later, but I think a bunch of very happy wide receivers, including a bunch of young guys that got drafted in the first round. It is a great time to play that position in the NFL. Full of tons of joy here. Let's talk about sadness, Dad. One team really came to mind for me. It was the Falcons. Because I go back to draft day when they think they've had a great offseason signing Kirk Cousins, and then they go out there and they draft Michael Penix Jr., 8th overall in the draft. And I saw so many dejected Falcons fans thinking, oh God, here we go again. We've got a new staff with Raheem Morris. We've got a new quarterback. We think in Kirk Cousins. And here the Falcons go doing the same old Falcons thing.
I like that one. I get that one. If I'm going to go sad, I may go Dallas Cowboys. What the hell are they doing? We got no end in sight to the Dak Prescott situation. And who the hell's running the ball? What's our running attack looking like here? As we try and we keep winning double-digit games the last few years and can't get anywhere in the playoffs, are we any better? If I'm a Cowboy fan, am I any better than we were last year? My answer would be no.
See, they were my pick for anger, the next emotion on the list.
Okay.
Because if I'm a Cowboys fan, you've been dealing with this for so long, and you're at the point, we talk about this all the time, most fan bases would saw off their right arm for 3 straight seasons with 12 wins and making the playoffs and doing the things that the Cowboys have done. But you're the Dallas Cowboys. You're a fan base and a franchise that's been told you're worth more than that. Right. You want more. And you get used to it. We all get used to the sound and the feelings of winning when it comes. And then we start to also want more for ourselves. And so Cowboys fans, we want a playoff win. They want to go back and get one of the elusive Super Bowls they haven't had in a while. And they have watched their franchise every single offseason go out here and do absolutely nothing. And now it's the kind of nothing that could end up costing you a quarterback and leading you back into the abyss.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as being anger as well. So they're sad and they're angry. They get 2 of them.
Yes, they do, as are the Cowboys. Let's talk about fear, Dad. Who's afraid? Because that's always, always the one that guys take the most personally when we talk about fear in sports.
It's tough for me to pick a football player and saying they're fearful of something. But I will say if there is a football player that could have some fear because they might have to get a little more involved, it would be the kickers, right? with the new kickoff rule going on.
Might have to mix it up.
Kickers have
that or their jobs are on the line too.
Yeah, that's another thing. We may see how some teams, transform a little bit differently on who kicks the ball off. But right now, kickers saying, "Wait, I have to go down and maybe be more involved in this thing." Not sure I really want to do that. So
I love the idea though coming out of this that we might get a kicker that fails a drug test now. Like there's going to be one that looks to the needle, right? And says, "Hey, I know what I got to do here. I want to hang on to this job. Maybe it's time I get in the gym and get a little bit of that brown bag special going."
Yeah.
That's what one of those guys is going to get randomly drug tested after a tackle this season. We see it all the time happen with players where you get a big, strong player that's out there in the field doing their work, and all of a sudden they do something freaky, and the next day there's a random drug test in their locker room. I will not be shocked when the first time a kicker makes a tackle this year, he is getting that note from the league in his thing telling him to come pee in this fine cup that they got there.
I remember seeing that note.
Claudia, early through these emotions, joy, sadness, anger, and fear, anything that jumps out to you from this upcoming NFL season from any of those? Any takes that you have here?
Patriots feeling all of this, knowing that we did the right things and got our quarterback and got a new head coach, but probably will still struggle to get 5 wins. So really just a jumbulation of all of those things, unfortunately.
Boy, that's about right, isn't it?
See, I do think that is, and that's honestly a perfect segue into our next emotion, because I'd imagine Patriots fans would also qualify for anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety around New England, a place that has done all this winning. Dad, they probably wouldn't be my pick, though. I actually think sneaky anxious this year, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Because the 49ers are going to deal with a very different world after this year. They're standing on the edge of a cliff right now. They have been so close in the last half decade with this team, having one of the best coaches in the NFL, having one of the best rosters in the NFL. And now they got a quarterback that Kyle Shanahan beat the drum for here in Brock Purdy. The whole Mr. Irrelevant story here. And now you're in the last year of that rookie deal. And now you're going to have to pay him if he keeps playing like this. And then your roster construction changes drastically. And I get they paid Jimmy Garoppolo good money before.
Right.
They're used to having a quarterback with a number on the roster. But it seems like the way that Brock Purdy is playing and the numbers he's put up and the way we're seeing quarterbacks rewarded, where if you're in that top half of the league and you're time for a payday, you're making $250+ million. You're making $120+ million guaranteed. And we're pushing north of $50 million a year, all of which makes it really hard for you to fill out that same ball and roster. That's also getting older, by the way, right?
Yes.
Trent Williams and George Kittle and all these guys aren't getting any younger on that team. And so I'd imagine there's a sneaky amount of anxiety in that 49ers building.
My anxiety is for, and I just said they should be happy before, but I'll throw in anxiety, is the Chicago Bears, Washington, New England, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Denver. 6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks, and even the management has to know this. The average is a half bust in the first round. So for those 6 teams, there's in the back of their mind, are we going to have one of the busts? Because it's going to happen. Not all 6. I'd love to see it. It would be incredible if all 6 actually turned out to have decent to great careers. But we usually know it's not going to happen.
I will say, I think the one that's kind of the couple that are kind of insulated from that now would be
Atlanta,
Minnesota and Atlanta because they don't necessarily have to have those guys start right away. Certainly in Atlanta, the plan might not be for him to start for years.
But
in Minnesota,
this is an overtime anxiety thing on who pans out and who doesn't.
I would say if you want to circle one right off the bat, though, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. I mean, you're fresh off of one of the worst failed experiments in terms of free agent quarterback contracts ever. Like, forget just the NFL, maybe in the history of pro sports with what just happened with Russell Wilson. And now if you're Sean Payton, you just hitched your wagon to what? The 6th quarterback off the board?
6th one.
For Bo Nix?
Yeah.
And I understand we have a lot of confidence in Sean Payton. We like Bo Nix. We had him on the show here.
Absolutely.
I hope it goes well for him, but it's still the 6th quarterback taken in this draft and one that people weren't sure were going to be in the first round. So I'd have to imagine those groups feeling a lot of feelings right now and feeling a lot of anxiety there. So it's just a little bit of feelings. We started off this segment with the feeling that I want to latch on to coming up next because we talked about joy coming off this. And I can't imagine there is any greater joy than being a part of a championship parade. I saw a big perk on ESPN talking about saying it was the best part of the championship was the parade. So coming up next, we hope we can wake him up in time here.
Oh, boy.
I'd imagine it's been a wild couple of days for Sam Hauser, NBA champion with the Boston Celtics, who is going to get set to join us next and answer one of the most important questions on the planet when we come back here on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic here. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. And we've seen a lot of champions crowned in this last week here. I don't know if we've seen a group having more fun, though, than the Boston Celtics in the wake of theirs. That is a town that knows how to celebrate a championship, knows how to throw a party, and got to do it earlier this week. And joining us now, one of the champions from that team, Boston Celtics small forward, Sam Hauser, kind enough to be with us now. Sam, how you feeling after all that, brother? Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a 7-day bender, that's for sure. But feeling good.
And we all find out at some point after college that we can't handle those very well anymore. You're what, 27, 20, 26, 27 years
26,
old?
Yeah.
Did you find
26.
Did you find that out as a day after day of partying going, man, my body, this is a struggle?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw it. There's a video of me throwing up on the float. So definitely can't handle it the same.
So we had to ask about that because we saw that video. We're breaking it down the other day. We have a lot of questions here. One, so we've got the confirmation that was a puke and rally situation.
Which is impressive.
You made it really effortless. Like, it was quick. It was efficient. What I want to know is, what else was in that cooler? Like, was that a cooler that other people had drinks with? Was that the puking cooler? How did that go? And did anyone else have to use that after?
That cooler was full of beer. And you can't see my wife in the video, but she's down on her hands and knees because I announced, like, I'm getting ready to throw up. She's trying to get the beer out. And there was still some beer in there as I threw up. We ended up throwing those to the crowd. So whoever got those, be careful. Yeah.
Oh my God! First off, love it. So you and your wife are both from Wisconsin, by the way. So you guys clearly value a beer the right way. But
that's
sure.
the MVP right there. That she is trying to save beers. That is so. I can't tell you how impressed I am with that. Wow.
What did she say to you after you got done puking?
I told her I loved her for doing that, and she said, "Yeah, you better."
All right. So if you caught a beer from Sam Hauser during the parade, just know you might have caught an even more special beer. You really took a piece of the Celtics championship parade with you.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean those are rare beers to catch right there. Very rare.
I hope somebody finds you with one of those, makes you sign it.
Exactly.
Now, were you part of the? Also, right after the championship, were you part of the group that went off to Miami and partied out there?
So I was not. I had my whole family in town, so I just kind of wanted to stay back and be with them. And I mean, I had a good time here too. I'm sure Miami was a lot of fun though.
No, it all looked incredible. So we're glad the party was great. We're glad everyone enjoyed some puke beers. But take us inside the actual championship moment itself, that incredible series that you guys had in the finals. And just overall for you, what was the feeling like when that final buzzer sounded of knowing you were an NBA champion?
Yeah, we had played really well all playoffs. I think we went 16-3. Which is pretty impressive and hasn't been done in a while. But those last 4 minutes of the game 5, it just felt like an eternity. And, you're just watching the clock tick down and we're starting to slowly sub our guys out, which was cool. They all kind of got a standing ovation, and being on the court for the last seconds with a couple other guys was pretty cool. And when that confetti hit, man, it was like a snowstorm. You couldn't see a thing, but it was pretty special and a surreal moment.
Were you guys aware of at least the talk from Celtic fans of still the kind of a feeling of we've kind of been in the area of this before and the team hasn't won it, and still kind of that trepidation of, can you guys pull it out?
Yeah, expectations were really high, as they should have been. That's kind of what we wanted, with the team we had, pressure's a privilege, and we handled it really well. And it's been 16 years since the last one. So just getting over that hump, especially for guys like Jason and Jalen, who have been around and seen a lot the last 7 or 8 years, it was pretty special for them.
There's a lot of focus on those two guys in particular. What can you say and describe about the dynamic between those two guys, as so many people focus on that from the outside?
Yeah. They catch a lot of flack. I don't know why. Probably just because of, the last 7 years of them getting really close and not kind of getting to the mountaintop. But both have been really successful in their time in the NBA, and they've grown a lot. I've only been here 3 years, but they've grown immensely in 3 years, and they're great leaders, great people on and off the floor, and that's what makes them special.
Take us inside a little bit to Joe Mazzulla and whether it's videos he shows for motivation or what his motivational words can be, and just some of the things that really caught your eye or your ear.
Yeah, he's a unique human being, as you guys can tell from the outside, but it's on the inside, it's the same. He showed us this one video one time of orca whales and how they hunt, and it was on like the Nature Channel, and it was these 3 orca whales that were kind of like scoping out the prey, which was a seal at the time on a piece of ice. And they're kind of lifting the head up, see where it's at, but they wouldn't attack without the other 2. And we watched that video of them basically attacking and killing a seal. And the message was, we can't do it alone. We got to do it together to attack our prey and kill our enemy. So that's just one unique, thing that he's done throughout the year. It's great.
I mean, with the firepower on your guys' team, you are akin to a pack of killer whales getting to gang up on and kill one seal. So that was what it felt like watching you guys romp through the NBA's postseason here this year. One of the other guys I want to ask you about is Al Horford, because it's rare in sports that you see so many people that are all so happy for one person. What has Al Horford meant to this Celtics team and organization since you've been there?
Man, he's everything to this team. He embodies being a Celtic. He embodies the culture. He's seen a lot in this league. He's experienced a lot. And, for him to finally get that championship trophy and get that ring, it's pretty special for him. And, we love him. He was the true anchor of our team. And there's no one like him in professional sports that I've been around. He is the cream of the crop.
There's always that one person or so on a team that you always have that special feeling for. And Al's certainly the guy for you guys in Boston. When was the first time the word repeat was said after you guys won?
Man, honestly, probably like the next day, I think. I believe, or maybe 2 days after, I saw Coach Mazzulla down on the north end in Boston having dinner, and ironically, he's carrying the trophy around, so big crowds by him. But I just remember him saying, "Can't wait for next year," and that got me going. I had chills when he said that, so I think we're all, we enjoyed this week, but we're really, really excited to get back at it next year.
Well, it's going to be incredible stuff, Sam, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Dad. You have something here?
Oh, yeah. So what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
What do you do in the off season, especially now that you have a championship?
Play a lot of golf, get ready to be a dad. My wife's doing early September, so this last week was a full week bender for a reason. I might not have a lot of those coming up, so it's a big summer, exciting summer. Only good things to come.
Your wife is due September, and she was down on her hands and knees saving beer.
Man.
The respect for her was already at the roof. It just went through the roof. Wow.
She was an absolute trooper, man. She was an absolute trooper.
Wait, so what's your wife's name?
Yeah.
Her name is Emmy.
Emmy. All right. Emmy Hauser, the MVP of the Celtics championship celebration effort by far there. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to you guys on the growing family there, and certainly on being an NBA champion now, Sam. Enjoy the rest of your summer here, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon, all right?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. This was awesome.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
The puke and rally king himself there. What a hero.
I mean,
I love it.
He is for how nonchalant he did it.
Yes.
It was just down, puke, right back up, arm back up in the air. But finding out what his wife did, pregnant, to clear and save, that's truly people from Wisconsin too, right?
That is,
without question.
That is good Midwestern values right there. Also, shout out, we gave Philly fans crap for eating poop after the Eagles won.
Yeah.
Some Boston fans were drinking puke beers out there, so you got to live with that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Whoever caught that beer from Sam Hauser, God bless and keep you. All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Open to talk to Emmett Golden from ESPN Cleveland, co-host of The Next Level out there, about the new hire, Kenny Atkinson, now the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the future of Donovan Mitchell, something that's certainly important in the balance of all that. But I have a question that's been on my mind all morning. Did you guys see, I believe it was Alexander Barkov last night from the Florida Panthers, with the smelling salts? Now, Dad, you and I hit plenty of smelling salts in the day. Claudia, I don't know, have you ever been exposed to those at all? Have you ever done a smelling salt?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My friends
all
play
right,
hockey.
well,
Yeah.
So we've all seen them there, and like you can rip the individual one there. I've seen plenty of guys before games put a bunch of them in a bottle, you shake it up, and it's really like some rocket fuel there. Barkov was hitting the smelling salts in his eyes before the game, just ammonia going right to his eyes pregame last night.
All right, I've never seen that.
That was incredible.
That. I don't understand. I don't understand it.
I don't either. Emmett Golden is with us here now. Emmett, have you ever done smelling salts, and have you ever thought about putting them near your eyes before?
Okay, no. I've smelled smelling salts one time, and obviously there's that jolt where you're like, oh my God, but in your eyes, like I think it would blind you more than it would help you.
Yes. I mean, your eyes are going to water anyway. You take a big enough sniff of that ammonia. I mean,
yeah,
I have no, how are you? I don't even know what you're really doing. I don't know either. I don't get it.
Claudia on the show with us told us that apparently people used to put Burt's Bees, the lip balm, on their eyelids to stay awake too. So there's a whole range of stuff for sleep deprivation that I have not been privy to. But either way, Emmett Golden, again, kind enough to join us here, part of ESPN Cleveland, the co-host of The Next Level. And I'm sure very much interested in now the future of this Cleveland team. So Emmett, take us inside the reaction locally there to the Kenny Atkinson hire and what this means coming off of the JB Bickerstaff tenure.
It was somewhat of a surprise. Over the past 2 weeks or so, James Borrego seemed to be the guy that, was going to be the next head coach, and everyone in Cleveland kind of got themselves ready for it. And late last week, we were all wondering why hadn't there been an announcement yet, because it seemed like such a slam dunk. And then Monday morning, we wake up to the news, and it seems as though the front office were very into James Borrego as the next head coach. But Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, was a Kenny Atkinson guy. And, he's friends with Tom Izzo, and allegedly Tom really liked Kenny and, kind of gave him some advice that that's who he liked. And look, guys, when you're a billionaire, you typically get your way. And I think that's what happened here in Cleveland.
Oh my gosh. Hire people to basketball people to make basketball decisions. Oh my gosh. That I was going to say, did the Detroit thing maybe stop Borrego from hanging on in Cleveland, or was he thinking but would you much rather be in Cleveland than in Detroit? So what are the expectations? I mean, for this team and how far they got to the semis of the Eastern Conference, in what the expectation is for the next year or two?
Well, the expectation is for them to not take a step back. JB Bickerstaff was relieved of his duties because they felt he couldn't get them to the next level. And every year with the team, he went to the next level. He took them from a lottery team to a play-in team to the first round to the second round. And they made this move, again, under the veil that he couldn't get them to the next level, when in reality, it feels like Donovan Mitchell wasn't the biggest fan of JB Bickerstaff. Right. And, just like billionaires, big-time superstars get their way as well in the NBA. So that's another big reason why the change was made. But, I mean, they can't take a step back. If they're in the play-in, or, if they miss the playoffs, or if they lose in the first round, it'll be a huge disappointment, because you literally fired a head coach that hadn't truly failed yet, that had never taken a step back. So you hire a new guy. You can't lose in the first round. If they lose in the second round to a good team, it's a long series. I don't think anybody in Cleveland will be upset. That's understandable. If they make the Eastern Conference Finals, great, but the expectations are no less than, competing in the second round.
You mentioned Donovan Mitchell's role in all of this. Is the feeling there locally that this hire now gives them a great chance to sign him to a long-term deal?
I actually believe the firing of JB Bickerstaff almost guaranteed it more than anybody they decided to hire. Donovan Mitchell, we reportedly spoke to Borrego, spoke to Atkinson, so he's kind of been loosely involved as he's tried to distance himself from this, but he has been loosely involved in all of this. So everyone expects Donovan Mitchell to resign. He's really embraced the community since he's been here. You can catch him at high school basketball games on the regular. So he never seemed as though he wasn't happy. And from a roster wise, this isn't a bad team to be on right now. They got some really good players and the future's bright.
Yeah, it definitely is. I know there was talk of Darius Garland possibly being traded, but that's really kind of quieted down. In your mind, what does this team need to do to take that next step?
I think you need to see Evan Mobley develop, an outside shot. When you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together defensively, I mean, they're one of the best big tandems in the NBA, but offensively, they kind of clutter the lane. And you really can't have Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland do the things that they do to be successful. So you really need Evan Mobley to be able to stretch the floor. And it's really as simple as that. As far as the Darius Garland thing is concerned, I don't know if that's quite over with yet. I do expect Clutch to request a trade when it's official that Donovan Mitchell signs an extension because, I've heard Rich Paul talk about maximizing his client's value. And over the past 2 years, Darius Garland's value has gone down as he's played alongside of Donovan Mitchell. So that's still something to keep your eye on. And if they do have to move Darius Garland, then it's up to Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey to, make the most out of that asset.
So they've certainly got things to work on internally there. But looking out at the rest of the Eastern Conference, listen, the Boston Celtics appear to be playing basketball on another level this year. They are certainly going to walk into next year with the bullseye on their back atop the Eastern Conference. But looking out at the rest, who do you see as the biggest competition or threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers trying to get back to where they were this last year and advance even further?
The Knicks, the Knicks are so good that I expect them to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they probably should have been this year, if we're being honest, if they were healthy. So I think the Knicks are a big-time contender. And there's some teams in the Pacers and the Magic that I believe will, increase and be better. But I think the Cavaliers are a year or two ahead of each. So the Eastern Conference is going to be tough, especially once everybody get healthy, because you talk about the Sixers and the Heat. So it's going to be tough for the Cavaliers, but they're definitely going to be a player in the playoffs.
How far is the reach for all the other teams in the Eastern Conference to get to Boston? How far do you think they're ahead of everybody?
I think they can be beat, but it's going to take your best. I don't think they're a team that you can have a couple off nights and think you can overcome that. Boston, in my opinion, is the best team in the Eastern Conference. You can argue, they won the championship, so theoretically they're the best team in basketball. Yeah. I know there's some great teams in the West, so it's going to be tough. In order to beat a champ, you have to beat them. So we haven't even started free agency or the draft, and I'm already looking forward to next season's playoffs.
It's incredible how fast it can go in advance there, yeah. But at least a good starting point here for Cleveland now with their next head coach in mind, and hopefully their star player secured for a long time coming up soon. Again, check out The Next Level with Emmett Golden on ESPN Radio in Cleveland. Emmett, we appreciate the time this morning, brother. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Emmett. Appreciate it. It is still amazing the power of the NBA player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was a thought. Mitchell and Bickerstaff. Is Mitchell not a big fan, and how there can be a change? Well, wait a minute. We want this guy to be around for a while, so let's keep him happy.
And it's not like I think a lot of people looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland's the one that we expect to be playing the shadow GM role here." Maybe just because, again, the background of that team, you're so used to thinking of, well, LeBron James was there. They had Kyrie Irving there in that building, and Donovan Mitchell's been good, but they have quietly, like I said, under JB Bickerstaff, had that constant tick up year after year. And now there is a lot of pressure on Kenny Atkinson to come in and be the guy and maximize that potential for this roster. But like we said, like Emmett brought up, when the decision comes from the guy who writes the checks up top, everybody else is playing for second in terms of their opinion. Coming up next, we have to deal with one of the most intergalactically stupid headlines and trends I have seen among men in years. Next to finish things up on GoJo Golic. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day and send me into an 11-day vacation in Japan. Wow. I love you all. I will miss everyone here dearly. Not that much, no. But good to recharge the batteries before we get going here. I'll miss Claudia dearly because this is my last show that I'm going to have with Claudia on here as we're getting ready for Jesse to coming back from maternity leave. Claudia, who's been so awesome here. I've loved hanging out with and doing that. And obviously, it's not goodbye. It's just see you later now. We're all friends in here. Claudia knows that she's got us anytime. So, obviously, Claudia, I will miss you dearly. Everyone else will be just fine, but I'll miss you dearly here. So, thank you for everything. It's been a ton of fun.
I'm excited for you. I want to see all the pics and you out there trying to work that language. We want videos. We want evidence of you assimilating out there. I'm excited for you.
I'm going to buy a bunch of samurai swords and try and ship them all home here. That's what I figured out. I realized I have a chance to get some cool weapons. Maybe potentially, and a bunch of anime stuff. Everyone knows, huge anime guy. Going to go over there to the epicenter of so much of that and try and get some of my favorite characters there. I might get a tattoo. Who knows? I don't even know if they maybe. I know it's not super in over there, but man, if I can get someone to do like a hype anime tattoo all over my back, that'd be sick. We'll get to that later here. In the meantime, download, subscribe, rate, and review this show. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. And if you miss us there, you can catch the best of GoJo and Golic noon to 1 p.m. Eastern wherever you hear VSiN on the radio. And if you miss us there or any of our great guests, and thank you to Emmett Golden from ESPN Cleveland for stopping by to talk about the Cavs' new hire. Thank you to Sam Hauser, champion for the Boston Celtics, confirming puke and rally status, confirming that there were puke beers drank by Boston Celtics fans in the crowd. You missed any of that, you can get it wherever you get our podcast or right here as soon as we get done on YouTube. Speaking of flights, let's get to this, gang.
Okay.
Saw an article yesterday. Kate Lindsay over at GQ Magazine did an article, Why Men Are Raw Dogging Flights. Apparently, there is a not so insignificant group of men who have decided during long flights, 8+ hour flights, to go with no entertainment, no headphones, and just watching the flight map for 8+ hours. They said there's even bonus points if you don't get up to pee or eat during the entire flight. I was asked by a friend of mine, a female friend of mine in the industry, to explain men after this. I have no defense for this. I am not of this. I will not co-sign this. This is going to the gym without headphones on steroids, which is already one of the worst things I can imagine for a human person on earth. So I publicly rebuke this. I renounce this in the name of men everywhere. We are not a party to this.
This is almost as dumb as trying to DQ or wanting to DQ a world record swimmer for swearing afterward.
Oh, this is dumber.
This is a joke. I mean, what are you men doing? What you know what you're proving? You're idiots. That's what you're proving. What are you doing? I wouldn't do this for 5 minutes, okay? Let alone 8 hours, and then go for bonus points. I'm going to sit there having to pee and say, no, I get bonus points if I don't pee. How dumb is that?
And you miss out on all the plain snacks?
I was just going to say that. How do they say no to the baby pretzels? They're crazy.
This is an abomination. It's ridiculous. Especially you got 11-hour flight coming up. The movie channel that you could watch, whether you bring your own or watch what's on the plane, all the food you're going to get.
It's a great chance to catch up on content, to get an array of snacks like at the movie theater that are sort of unique, the Biscoff cookies and such on the airplanes. You don't get you can buy them other places, but you don't really ever do it.
They don't hit the same. They really don't when you're on the plane.
Little OJ with ice. I might get a little drunk at some point, and I'll have time to get sober during that flight. It's going to be great.
This is crazy. This is crazy talk.
Honestly,
crazy talk.
It seems like something, and we see so many viral trends of people doing dumb things just for attention. That's what this seems like. Yeah. I don't believe people are actually doing this at length. And the other thing I don't believe is that anyone wants to emulate this. Like, I know we live in like the David Goggins world where everyone's doing this alpha male biohacking BS, but I really cannot believe we're going to stoop this low and subvert our... Fellas, you deserve to be happy. Give yourself a little treat. Cry a little bit watching something on the airplane. Enjoy yourself because you earned it having to live through the rest of your life being a dumbass like this.
I'm with you. It's ridiculous.
Claudia, let's get to that and some headline in golf here.
Yeah, this is insane. A Golf Galaxy employee qualified for the Rocket Mortgage. He lives in Michigan, 27 years old. He shot a 65 at the qualifier, so he got a spot in the 5-for-4 playoff. 8 holes, he secured one of the final 4 spots. And apparently he downed 3 beers. Here's what he had to say about going into the playoff.
All right, here with Nick Vince, leading with 65. Nick, you said you're having a beer or two.
This is number 2.
Yeah, because you're a little nervous. This is not a situation you're normally in.
No, not every day. I would actually never continue to say that you're probably 5 or 6 groups away from playing a PGA Tour event. So I need every ounce of alcohol right now to calm the nervous system and not try to vomit on myself. So that's where we're at right now.
And afterwards, he qualified. He said 3 beers was perfect, and I got a call out of work tomorrow because he was supposed to go work at Golf Galaxy at 7:30 in the morning.
Now he gets to golf in this tournament in Detroit, right? I mean, how awesome for him. And by the way, he is exactly right. You have to find the perfect amount.
So true.
The perfect amount of alcohol. Too little, it doesn't do anything for you. Too much, you're really screwed up. So, man, you got to – and then if you find it, then it's maintaining it.
That's the hardest
the rest
part
of the round. So kudos to him for figuring out the formula.
It's incredible. That's preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
Like you said, we just played in our charity tournament. Every charity tournament I've ever played in, it's figuring out in the group, are we in contention? And if so, where do we cut off consumption and just get to cruising altitude here? Because you go over the hump, then you're trying to hit 1 ball in the middle of 3. It goes to hell. This guy's already got people vying for position. Kevin Kisner saw this tweet about him and tweeted at the PGA Tour and said, pair me with him, seeing the story that he pounded 3 beers before the playoffs. So he's going to have cult hero status going into this tournament.
It's a real thing. I went to a tournament one time, and the other 4 I golfed with all worked at a tequila company. By the 3rd hole, we realized we were winning nothing. 4 bottles of tequila later, it was ridiculous how the end of that went.
The amount of charity golf tournaments that have ended with my dad giggling, calling my mom from the woods while he's like peeing or worse is too many to count. So this guy weaponized this a lot better than you did. We're proud of him for it.
Very, very proud of him.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Excited to watch you here.
Good luck to you.
Claudia, let's finish this off with the 3rd here. Joe Burrow had quite a week in France.
I just want to know what's worse than peeing in the woods and why he's giggling about it, but we don't have to talk about that here. Okay. Joe Burrow is on his tour. He was asked, he continues his tour, walking runways and doing karaoke, apparently. I don't know. Take a listen.
What's your go-to song for karaoke?
I don't think I've ever done karaoke.
Yeah,
oh,
but
Nelly, Hot in Here.
Okay.
I know every word of that, yeah.
So, next time you do karaoke, which will be your first time?
Since high school.
Okay.
Last time I did it was high school.
We're going Nelly.
That's right.
All right, cool.
Joe Cool, baby. What's your go-to karaoke, guys? I know you have one.
Joe Burrow never doing karaoke does surprise me.
That surprises me a lot.
He seems like a fun-loving guy.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, there's nothing like jumping up, having a few drinks, and going to karaoke.
I'm amazed. So we've talked a lot about you going to the American Century Tournament at Lake Tahoe, and there's a party for all the golfers and family members a couple of days into the time there, and there's a karaoke contest that like Alfonso Rivera won last year. Travis Kelce has won multiple years, and I want to see if he takes that performance from the stage there. You had the chance to sign up and didn't. I'm stunned.
Well, I mean, I still can. I'm not going to lie. I forgot. I didn't know you had to sign up, and I didn't last year. The issue is, I don't know what kind of chance I'm going to have. All of you were there. They all sang like upbeat, like fast songs.
You're going to do Brandy by Looking Glass, and that's upbeat enough.
Now, Brandy is not that upbeat. I would either do Brandy or Take It Easy by the Eagles. That's the one I sang on stage.
Which is upbeat.
Which is, but they're not as upbeat as the one that everybody get up there singing, louder, faster songs. But that's my song. It's Brandy by Looking Glass. I'm sure, Claudia, you have no idea what.
No clue.
Right.
Yeah. Claudia, do you have one?
No, I don't have. I'm not going to sing it, but I can hear it in my head. Yeah. Probably something like Rihanna. I don't know. I feel like
the number one rule with karaoke is always win the crowd. Everybody by the Backstreet Boys. You don't have to sing it great, but you get everyone along. Peak 90s nostalgia. Upon that rock, we will build our church. And if you like that church, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday. Thank y'all. I'll see you in a week and a half. Good luck. Don't burn.